Julius Malema set to face a criminal prosecution for allegedly falsely accusing Jaco Pieterse, the former principal of Bergview College in Matatiele, of raping a 7-year-old girl. The case relates to comments Malema made in April last year when he publicly accused Pieterse of raping the child and suggested he may have committed similar offences in the past. Pieterse later lodged a criminal complaint against Malema at the Sophiatown police station in June last year after the NPA declined to prosecute him over the alleged rape, citing insufficient evidence. Similar complaints were also lodged against ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and Eastern Cape Education MEC Fundile Gade over the same allegations. All right, so Barry Bateman is from AfriForum's private prosecution unit, and he joins us now live. Barry, very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. So what specific evidence or legal principles underpin AfriForum's decision to pursue the criminal charges against Julius Malema for his public statements? And similar complaints had been laid against the SG of the ANC as well as the MEC within the Eastern Cape. Why is this only seemingly to Julius Malema and not all those that the complaints had been placed against?
Well, the complaints were filed at 3 different police stations. In Julius Malema's instance, it was the Sophiatown police station. In Fikile Mbalula, it was Boksburg, and then Fundile Gade, it was done in the Eastern Cape, or rather the case was transferred there after being opened up here. So it's in this particular matter that the DPP's office in Gauteng has made the decision. We are continuing engagements with the NPA to ensure that those other matters are also enrolled and that prosecution ensues. The legal foundation for this case that we've assisted Jaco Pieterse opening is simply that Jaco Pieterse, first of all, was never a suspect in this investigation by the police done in the Eastern Cape, let alone was he in any way linked to the alleged rape of the child. There's simply no basis for such a claim. Julius Malema didn't even refer to Mr. Pieterse as being a suspect. He went outright and said that principal that raped Cwecwe. We say this is a fundamental violation of his rights to dignity, and that there should be consequences for this. And we point out in our letter to the NPA that Julius Malema himself has turned to the courts on numerous occasions when his rights to dignity have been violated, notably when Kenny Kunene referred to him as a drug dealer and associating himself with criminals, and when Musa Kawula said, something that his marriage was on the rocks. Julius Malema said not only his own dignity, but his wife and his family and everybody around him, their dignity was violated. But here he goes and calls a teacher one of the worst things somebody who works with children can be called, and that is a child rapist, and there must be consequences for that.
And so speaking on just that fundamental violation of Pieterse's rights, maybe just elaborate on the legal distinctions between the criminal and juror violation of dignity and the intimidation in this context, and why these particular charges were chosen.
Well, we had filed the intimidation as well as a cybercrimes complaint, including the criminal injuria. Unfortunately, the state had declined to prosecute on those. The intimidation aspect related to Julius Malema threatening to his thousands of supporters that the party would arrest Jaco Pieterse. So that we said was the intimidation aspect, although, again, I must stress, the NPA declined to prosecute that. And then the cybercrimes aspect was that this was broadcast on the EFF's official channel. Again, the state declined to prosecute on that aspect.
Yeah. And talking about the NPA and the police investigations that found no evidence of sexual assault, how does then the criminal complaint by AfriForum address the issue of recklessness or defamatory speech versus protected political expression?
Well, it comes down to making allegations against individuals that are patently false. Political expression could relate to speaking out against rape. Rape is a bad thing and it's a scourge in society. Most notably, we're standing here today on Women's Day weekend where these important issues need to be discussed. So it's one thing to speak out against the scourge. It's another to say that teacher raped that child and therefore we are going to arrest him. And, it simply cannot be accepted as a form of freedom of expression when it fundamentally undermines the rights of an individual.
So, Barry, how does this case illustrate the potential impact of political rhetoric on individual reputation and just the broader societal implications of such public accusations?
Well, words have consequences. Mr. Cwecwe Pieterse has lost everything. He's no longer a teacher. He had to leave the town where he had spent a large part of his life. His lost a business. They've suffered.
All right, it seems as though we are losing that connection to Barry Bateman, who is speaking to us with regards to that response for the AfriForum setting up charges against EFF leader. We have reached out to the EFF for a response on this, but I believe we've got Barry who's back on the line. Barry, you were just finishing your thought with regards to the effects of such public accusations.
That politicians have large platforms and they should use those responsibly. Speaking out against gender-based violence is a responsible thing to do. Accusing people who there's no facts to suggest that they were involved in any kind of criminality is irresponsible. So I think there needs to be lessons here that politicians should be mindful of what they say. And if they overstep those bounds, well, then there should be criminal consequences, as is the case in Julius Malema, Fikile Mbalula, and Fundile Gade.
Just one last thing, looking ahead, what measures or legal reforms do you believe are necessary to better protect individuals, particularly from false accusations and reckless statements that could be made by public figures?
I don't think there needs to be legal reforms. I think that the police should be more stringent and should be acting with, act swiftly on criminal complaints of this nature. It took our office to make representations for the NPA to finally make its decision. The case was opened more than a year ago. These matters should be taken seriously, and if they are, like all crimes, there needs to be certainty of conviction if you are to address it, and that's across the board with crimes in South Africa. We look at organized crime, for example. If people are going to get away with it, there's nothing to stop them from doing it. The same applies to this.
All right, Barry Bateman, AfriForum's private prosecution unit. Thank you so much for joining us on